All right, what's going on, everybody? It is Tactical Thursday. This is formerly known as Tactical Tuesday, as you guys know, but we switched it. And tonight we are going to have. Oops, let me mute my YouTube tab. There we go. Tonight we are going to have a special guest for just a couple of minutes, and then we're going to do a little bit of tactical arbitrage Q&A. I got a really good question message to me earlier that I want to go over, and then we have another special guest who you can see with me, Dillon from venDrive as well as Aura, and we're going to be talking about repricing. He kind of gave me a little bit of a teaser email, like, hey man, I've got some new strategies and I think that you guys would like to hear it. So I told him, of course, I'm going to be all ears. So we're going to dive into that as well. And before we get going, let me bring up my son. Come here, bud. So my son, and because this is my show and I do it every single week, basically without fail, he is going to put out a shameless plug. Go ahead, buddy.
What?
You go ahead and say what you want to say.
Hi, my name's Wyatt Grants. Can you please sign up for a fundraiser to make money for our school, please?
Click the link below.
Where?
Just you say click the link below.
Where?
You just say that.
Click the link below.
Good job. All right.
Awesome job.
So guys, I'm going to drop a link. I have been dropping this out a few times, and my son's got a little fundraiser going on for his school. If you guys donate and shoot me an email, we'll do like a special webinar and talk about Q4, and I'll show you some things that I don't typically release to the public. Yeah, I'll make it worth your while. So go support him. I would really, really appreciate it. And let's dive in, guys. So tonight, I've got a couple of questions. I'm going to share my screen for just a few minutes. And let's see here. Let me share Google Chrome here. All right. So the question that I had was, how can I easily look at multi-packs in tactical arbitrage? And so the answer is kind of twofold. One is it's not the easiest thing to do. I will be honest. The Amazon catalog is disjointed and fragmented and all over the place. And third-party sellers oftentimes do not know how to properly make listings and make sure that the back end is clean with keywords and all the other things that it's supposed to have on there. So tactical arbitrage can only show you what the API gives it. So if the API says it is 1 unit, then that is what that's what you get. That's what you see. Okay. This this pure Castile soap is a perfect example. We can see that it's a 1 at jet.com, but it's 2 over at Amazon. However, I can guarantee that even though it says 2-pack in the Amazon title, the back end in the API probably only says that it's a unit of 1, which is very, very typical. So there are a couple things you can do. One, you can just be a champ and power through and go in and match the quantities, okay? And that would be one of the best things. However, or you can also hire a VA to do that. So if they see 2-pack or they see a picture of 2 and they double check it, they can go in and change the quantities for you. However, one of the other things you can do is you can use the on-page filters. And this is probably going to, this will make it a little bit easier for you guys. But one of the first things I would do is in the Amazon title here, use the little magnifying glass and type in the word pack, okay? We're gonna hit apply. And now I'm gonna take that from 12,000 items down to around 6,500 items. And then, because we know things like this first one here, it's not going to make a profit once we have two of them. Okay, we got 1950 is the adjusted price. I'm guessing that's after that's going to be after all my fees for prepping and packing. I don't have any sales tax, but if we make that two, this is going to end up being not profitable. Okay, so the other thing we can do is I'm going to go in here and I'm going to do a gross ROI between, let's say, 125 and 250%. I'm going to apply that. And now what we have is we have some items that have a much larger ROI, going to have a larger gross profit, and you should be a bit closer to being able to match these two products that actually are going to make money. Okay, so this one, of course, is not. But if you scroll through here, like we can see that the price on this one is $3.97. I'm not sure why that's $6.20 there. That doesn't seem quite right. But $3.97 is going to be a little bit easier to make a profit. Well, not with six. Okay. This one's matched up properly, still has a nice high ROI. This one here is a 6-pack. You're looking at 265. You're compared to 18 bucks. You're not going to make any money there. But this would be one of the ways that you can kind of cut out a lot of the items. You may even want to go with a higher ROI. But this would be one of the ways that you can cut down on all of the things that you see where the multi-packs don't match up, and then you can kind of make a rough estimate as to what would be worth digging into a little bit more. Okay, so there's not a great way to do this. You just kind of have to dig your heels in and be willing to do the work, because there is money in multi-packs, there's money in bundles, but the thing is because it's not low-hanging fruit, there are a lot of people that don't do it, which is going to benefit those of you who do take the time. And then the other question. The other question was, the same product may appear in multiple ASINs. We know that people create duplicate listings all the time. So they're wondering, does Tactical Arbitrage grab every ASIN that's matched against a product, or does it only grab the lowest BSR? The answer is that Tactical Arbitrage tries to match a product from wherever the PharmaPack, let's say this PharmaPacks product here, it tries to match against every possible match on Amazon. Okay, so in this particular case, only one matched, but if it found another that fit your filters, it would match that as well. Okay, so we can see this one here. These are just a little bit different, and they don't quite match up, because this is a medium brown and this is a black hair color. This one's a medium brown to a medium brown here. But we can see that these are the same ASINs. So it tried to match up something to more than one ASIN. And as long as it fits your filters, it will do that. Okay. And that does this. That's both for product search and reverse search. So it tries to get everything it can for you, so you can kind of pick which one you want to go after. Let's see here. Sorry, guys. Let me pull up the chat, make sure I'm not missing anything. There we go. All right. Would it match all packs with child ASINs if it was under a parent ASIN? Yes, it will try. Okay. So yeah, let's say that the parent ASIN is a single pack or a single quantity, then and let's say that it's selling within as a 2-pack, but and it's sold as a 2-pack from, say, Walmart, it will try to match those up. That starts getting even more difficult, just because child ASINs are often, they're just done poorly. I mean, worse than regular ASINs are built. If you guys ever really dig deep into the way that a product listing is built, a lot of them are ugly. There's no back-end keywords. It'll be a pack of 6, like this soap, and they'll say that it's a package of 1. And Amazon is trying to crack down on this, but with over 300 million ASINs, I mean, I in my opinion, it's seemingly impossible to really completely crack down on it and B, go back and fix everything without completely gutting the catalog and starting fresh, which would be impossible. It would be a nightmare for the customer and the stock price, to be quite honest. All right, going to answer just a couple more questions, guys, and then we're going to start talking repricing because sourcing is important, but getting those products to sell is just as, if not more important, because you got to get the money flowing back into your account after you spend it. So, James, for Tactical Bucket, does it provide more info on the same website that you would check on TA, or does it just make it more convenient? So Tactical Bucket doesn't. Yes, it will provide some more information on a particular website. For example, you could make an easy bulk, or it's not an easy bulk, but you could make a bulk list for a site that you want to go into Tactical Arbitrage, and you can kind of surgically pull out what categories you want a little bit easier than you can with an easy bulk. An easy bulk is kind of using a shovel, and using Tactical Bucket is kind of like using a scalpel. So, for example, I've got 12,000 results here that need to be gone through. And the way that I did this is I created bulk lists of every single beauty category on source sites. So we're talking Walmart, not Kmart, not Sears, but Target, and then a bunch of other sites that nobody's ever heard of. And that's what goes in there, and I can surgically grab those. Eat Sleep Amazon. That's I mean, I always feel like I screw your name up. I don't know if it's Tiffany or Tiffiani, because I know how it's spelled there. So I apologize. But yeah, guys, if you're on YouTube, smash that thumbs up and hit subscribe so that I can do some more of these videos. I would really appreciate it. Let's see here. What is the column highlighted in the reddish color? That's the Amazon UPC /EAN. So in the United States, that's going to be a UPC. And when it's in red, it does not match the UPC from the source site. So we can see the UPC from Target is 0187, yada, yada. And the one on Amazon is 766, etc. What they did on this particular listing is either A, they pulled the UPC from one of these flavors of soaps, or they bought a UPC off of eBay and created the listing against Amazon terms of service. That's probably going to be my guess. If you guys are going to create a listing like this, I'm all about it. Just get a GTIN exemption instead of using a UPC that you buy from eBay. Nowadays, because you're supposed to use GS1 barcodes, and you don't want to tick off Bezos. Let's see here. All right. Yeah, Mike, you do need to learn tactical arbitrage and then hire a VA because you're going to have to teach them, especially the way that you want them to do it. Tactical Bucket can get just a little bit more surgical, but it's really about the convenience, and it's about being able to create a bulk list across tons of sites. So, for example, I created a bulk list the other day, which I'm only showing you my Google Chrome screen and not the rest of my computer, so I can't show it to you right now. But what's happening is I actually created a bulk list that spans like 400 different sites. So I've got beauty category from everywhere. And all I had to do was click one button, and then I created the beauty category, and that created it across every single XPath. I have the God mode plan, so I have like 200 extra sites in my account. And I have a bulk list for all of those. Okay, just for the beauty category. And Q4 is coming up. I can do the same thing for toys. I can do the same thing for any category named pumpkin if I wanted to go ham on pumpkin spice stuff. So there's always all kinds of ways to slice and dice the data. And then of course last week we talked about one of the other features for Tactical Bucket, and it's pretty cool. It pulls in discounts and things like that. Hassan asks, brand new here, never used the TA tool. Can you recommend a good lecture / resource to get a comprehensive tool overview? You are looking at it, sir. This is Tactical Thursday. I have a playlist on YouTube called Tactical Tuesday currently. And if you go from beginning to end, you're going to get an overview of the entire thing. Clive, how do you get God mode? Shoot me a message or an email and I will get you taken care of. All right, guys, I am going to stop the share here. I promised Dillon we'd get rolling about 8:30, I believe. So we're going to talk repricing because repricing is crucial, especially in Q4. Things move really, really fast. And Dillon said he's got some new information for us. So I am all ears, sir.
Cool. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Dude.
Yeah. So I while you're kind of doing all that, I was getting my iPad set up because I remembered with Zoom, you can actually share your iPad.
Oh, nice.
I want some visuals, right? Like visuals are nice. So let me see if it'll let me share it here. And I'm going to walk through something interesting that I recently did. Let's see. Perfect. Okay. So it is letting me do that. Okay. So we have this strategy that we've been recommending and using with our users. We call it price cycling or an oscillation like setup, whatever you want to call it. Essentially what we're doing is we're trying to take advantage of the buy box ownership by going below by a penny. Makes sense. Let's get rid of the whole, price tanking, all that. That's a misnomer. There's an added piece that we always forget to include here, right? That added piece is once we hit our min price, we're going to jump to our max price. So the way it looks, if this is, let's say, our current price, we're trying to step this down slowly, just penny by penny. And let's say our min price is going to be 15 bucks. Once we hit that $15, we're going to go ahead, jump our price up to our max. Let's say it's 22. Well, depending on if a seller is automatically repricing or manually repricing, they'll typically follow us back up. The way we're taking advantage of this really pulls from behavioral finance. And it's the same thing we would do if we were in the opposite side. So we're taking advantage. We're pulling people down. It's okay. We're getting sales. Once we hit 15, we jump to 22. And then the other seller says, wait a second, why am I selling at 15 and you're at 22? I want money. Either automatically via their repricing tool or manually, they jump back up. What's great is once this happens, we just loop back through, right? So we just iteratively go back through this loop. So it makes a lot of sense. The min price, not as important. The max price is important. But here's what's here. This was interesting. So I was working with a current user, and he's like, hey, this one seller is just, they're incredibly aggressive. I'm having a lot of trouble getting control of sales. They pretty much fully have taken sales away from me. So I said, okay, let me play around with this idea and see what we can do. So here's the dynamics. There are currently three FBA sellers, if we will. One is not repricing and two of us are. So here's the breakdown. We have one seller at $22.50. So our user plus the other seller are playing between $20 and 16. So 16 was our min price. Well, 16 is a little low. We didn't really like that. It's still profitable, but what we wanted to try to do is to take both of these ranges and simply raise the market. So oddly enough, we were able to do that using this oscillation process over here. So here's how this worked. We push the seller down to 16. We change our max from 20 to 2250 because there's another seller there. Once that happens, we jump to the 20. So we jump up here to 2250. The other seller follows us up. This is a critical moment because what ends up happening is we can leave our min price and just continue this loop as we are, or we can slowly raise it. And so what we did was we jumped our min to 18. So we jumped to 2250. We start to push down like we were before. We hit 18 instead of 16. We bounce back up and we started this process all over again. Here's where it got super, super interesting. The seller said, you know what? I actually know this seller. We're friends. It's really? Okay. Well, they're not repricing. Are we willing to work together here? Because the idea was let's create a mini alliance, right? You're already friends. We can assume you have some alliance here. And he said, you know what? He's willing to go to 23. I said, okay, perfect. So now our max jumps from 2250 to, let's say, 23. We've already raised the min $2. Now, what a lot of sellers don't realize, the market was not the $20 where we currently, or where we were before we started this process. It's actually the range between the min and the max. What we're trying to do is completely shift up that range. And something I've learned in the past 2 months that I don't know why it's taken me so long, but it makes so much sense now. I'm not trying to optimize every single sell. Instead, I'm trying to optimize my average sale price. Makes sense, right?
Absolutely.
Because yeah, you might get sales closer to this $18 and you're like, I'm not as excited, right? 23 is a little bit better. I would agree. But what happens if we don't do this and then your actual ends up being an average of, let's say, 1950, right? We're going to stem from where it was previously. And that's okay. But during this process, this right here, we actually increase the average sale price. So not only did we increase the frequency of sales, so the velocity, we also increased the average sale price. So the user, one, made more money per unit on average, but also more units sold. Does that make sense?
Fascinating. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And this is the first time me having to like visually draw this out. Usually this is in my head. But let's clean this up a little bit because it's important to understand the dynamics here, because it can feel a bit confusing. And so all we did was we took this oscillation process, right? Let's just call it price cycling. The point of price cycling is not to tank a price. It's not it at all. What we're doing is we're taking advantage of the algorithm that Amazon currently uses. We know that it's a fact. If you lower your price by a penny, you pull more of the buy box. That's okay. Now, what we don't want to do is actually tank the price, right? That's not the point.
Right.
So we're going to take advantage of that weakness, if that's what we can call it, and that's what we kind of consider it. We take advantage of it here, and then we bounce it back up, and then we take advantage on the opposite end of behavioral finance, right? Why am I selling so low? We jumped up, we left you there, you're freaking out, you want more money. We start this process all over again. It's great. We've done it with 3 FBA sellers. We've done it with 5. We've done it with 7. And they all follow up. It's pretty interesting. Does not happen on every single listing. That's super important. But generally it does. And so what's great is whenever you're dealing with an exceptionally painful seller and you're like, Dillon, I cannot figure this guy out. What is going on? This is usually the strategy we end up going with. And so I'll show you in Aura how to actually set up these settings, and it'll help mechanically break down what we're doing here. But I want to go over this conceptually because initially it was just this overall process, just the oscillation. It works. It's great. But how in the world do we take a range that is currently here and completely shift the market range up? I want to shift the market. That's all I want to do. And fun fact, we can. It's in how you do it. Now, this is not fully automated. That's super important. The oscillation process is. But if you have a specific listing that you want to shift the market up on, you can do it. The process is obviously having a strategy that's going to do the oscillation. But as you bounce up to your max, once you've hit your min price, and again, I'll go over how to do this from a setting and strategy standpoint.
Perfect.
I'm just iteratively raising my min. It may be $1. It might be a little bit more. It depends. And I'm just slowly working that min up. And if I can, also doing the same thing with my maxes. So I might take this from $20 up to, let's say, 23 in total. So I'm shifting the market completely up. That's what I'm trying to do here. Hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Okay, let's see if we have any questions on it before I jump into the actual strategy settings, and it'll help bring a lot of this together.
Yeah. We do have one. Yasser
Perfect.
was curious, what sort of quantity would you need to make this kind of price cycling work? Because he said he's trying to go shallow more recently
Sure.
and wide.
Honestly, so I've never thought about it from a volume standpoint, because it doesn't matter as much, but it does change, obviously, the dynamics. If you only have one unit, this is actually a really good way to move that unit very fast. And I'm a finance major, so I geek out with this stuff. The simple fact is $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. So this idea that I'm willing to wait an extra 5 days for 10 cents dumbfounds me. It doesn't work. We can do the math on it, but that's not how it works. And what's interesting is when you have 1 to 5 units and you run this price oscillation strategy, you may never reach your min price. But let's say we end up getting those 5 sales with 2 to 3 cent differences between each one, working our way down. One, you move those units within the matter of days and didn't really affect the market at all. But if you had a large volume, you would have a full loop, right? So a full cycle, if that makes sense. It works great on either one, but obviously you run out of volume before you have a full loop, versus if you have a ton of volume, it's different, right? And so like we do this with one-off items. It works great, moves inventory very quickly. It doesn't give up a whole lot. A lot of people think, again, this whole price tanking idea, it's not really how it plays out if you do it right. And that's the important part here. We've also done it with wholesale. So people that have hundreds upon hundreds of units, works great because you become what's called a price leader. Whenever you are taking control of the buy box, both down and up, you are taking control of the sales and the price itself. And when you have a very quick repricing tool, becoming a price leader is incredibly easy to do. So that's kind of what we're going for. So in terms of volume, it works great with either or, but the outcome's a little different. Neither good nor bad, right? Just different.
Interesting. Now, as you're shifting the market up,
yes,
how have you seen it affect the sales velocity?
Yeah, that's a good point. We're not trying to shift it up too much, right? We're still dealing with economics here. So what I'm not trying to do is shift up $10. I'm really not even trying to shift up $5. You can shift the entire market or simply shift up the min. So when we do this price oscillation, the range you can do this depends on you. I like less than $3. So I would have a min of, let's say, 20, a max of 23. It would also still depend on how I'm setting up my strategy. So if I'm automatically setting my min prices based off an ROI, they're going to land where they land, and I'm fairly comfortable with that. The max prices I actually like to set where the next group of FBA sellers are sitting that are not repricing. And you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And so let's say there's 10 FBA sellers, 3 of which are actively repricing. We're one of them. The rest are sitting in little pricing groups. I'm sure you've seen this too, Chris. There's these little groups, right? And so what I'm looking for is that next highest group. Because if I'm going to take advantage of those 2 other sellers and I'm going to take control here, where do I jump to? I want my max to be at that next lowest grouping. So when I jump up, they're like, yeah, that's the next lowest. We're good here. And so when they jump to meet that price, I can come back down. I'm almost like jumping back into the weeds. Like I'm not here. And then we go back into it, right? That's the way I kind of approach it. But yeah, in terms of the velocity, we know economically, if we lower the price, we increase velocity. Makes sense. We want a balance though. And so when we're taking advantage of the oscillation itself, we're dipping into high velocity, we're popping back up. And we're just looping through this whole thing. But when we're raising the entire market side, the min and the max, I'm not trying to raise this thing $5+. You might, it depends on the listing itself, right? Because it is subjective. Price is relative. But typically on an average product that we've kind of ran this experiment on, it's like $2 to $3 range. And again, we're not getting sales at the top end. That's not the point. The point is just to reset. So we're not getting sales up here, right? I'm just trying to move my average sale price. And what's cool is once we can do that, we can find a nice happy medium, that equilibrium, if you will, from an economic standpoint. I like Christopher's comment. Dillon, you sat in the front of math class, didn't you? Maybe, no. It's cool. I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you have the data set that we do, and obviously the ability to run experiments on certain tough situations, you get to be like, let's try that. And you're like, wait a second, that's pretty cool. And then you want to scale it out, obviously.
Yeah.
Dillon, you'd be fun to go couponing with. That's too tedious. Too many scissor cuts for me. Cool. All right. So let me share. I think we're kind of caught up on there. Let me share my screen for Aura, and I'll walk you guys through how we actually do that, because it's slightly important.
Perfect.
Okay. So we're in our demo account here. So hopefully you guys can see everything. I'm just going to create a strategy from scratch that does this oscillation. Super important. So we're going to create new strategy, choose Amazon, and then we're going to go ahead and do custom strategy. So my competition type, this is actually what I'm trying to target, right? It's not always a seller. This is odd. I like to use only buy box. So oddly enough, and a few sellers and users get confused because when you hear the word competition, you're like, wait a second, that's a person. Not necessarily. So when our competition type is the buy box, it's the buy box itself. Now, it's the seller in the buy box, but I'll explain in the pursuit section why this context is relevant. So I'm going to choose only buy box. That's what I like to go with 98% of the time. I see a lot of sellers go with lowest overall, lowest FBA. You give up a lot when you do that. You're almost pushing your price down too much to where you're actually just not going to pull the buy box, and it becomes kind of irrelevant. Featured sellers, it's a little bit redundant here because we're targeting the buy box. If they're in the buy box, they're featured, but redundancy is never a bad thing. I'm going to go ahead and leave Amazon in here. I don't really care about that as much. Exclude sellers by their feedback rating, 80%. Anywhere between 70 to 80% is pretty good. I was helping a user today. Theirs is on 80%, and they're like, why am I not repricing against the seller in the buy box? Their feedback rating was at 79. So,
oh man,
but they're in the buy box. And so we went ahead and threw this down to 70%. But whatever feels comfortable with you. Again, it's a bit redundant because if they're in the buy box, I probably don't want to exclude them. So we can even just disable this to make it simple. Exclude backorder sellers, fine with that. Exclude competition type by handling time. Typically, again, this is redundant. A lot of the first section settings here are for competition types of lowest overall, lowest FBA, where we do want to have some exclusion criteria. With buy box, again, if it's a merchant fulfilled seller in the buy box, I'm still going to compete with them, right? I'm going to reprice a little bit differently, but it totally matters. So I might disable that. If you're doing, let's say, lowest overall, but you want to factor out some merchant fulfilled, we can totally do that. But for our simple purposes, I like robust, simple strategies. We're going to disable that. And then if you have used items, we just want to do same or better condition. That's just a good rule of thumb. I don't really ever touch used stuff. But I like to have things built in here in case I ever deviate. It's just, we're good, just Absolutely. In case. All right, so let's get to the nitty gritty here. Okay, so if we just have the first section, this applies to any type of seller. Doesn't matter the type, this is what we're gonna do. Here's what I like to structure this. I like to say price above by 3 to 5%, or I'm gonna do 3%, I'm pretty conservative on this. And if I enable the second section, the top section now is only for merchant fulfilled sellers. The second section, obviously now for prime sellers. And what I like to do is price below, again, by a penny. This is the first step of the buy box oscillation. Now, I've seen some sellers do the oscillation without pricing below. They just match price. Once it hits, it bounces up. It works, but it's very slow. So my issues with matching the price of the buy box. One, you're giving up a lot. And I get the whole, we should all be fair and just share the buy box because we're a community and we love each other. And I agree, but we all have our own businesses and we're here to compete. Let's compete. It's the analogy that I love to give about steroids in sports. Whether you're for or against, kind of doesn't matter. As long as so let's say they become legal. You have, let's say 70% of the players say, you know what? I'm not going to participate in that. No, thank you. But I want to continue playing. You go, perfect. Not a problem. But there's a critical mass of players that just might decide, you know what? I want that edge. I'm going to do it. The entire marketplace has now just shifted. You either continue to play as you were, in which case you're not going to compete, or you choose to compete. The game has changed. So the way I view it, you can say, hey, philosophically, I want to match price. And I do think that a lot of times it can make sense depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But if you're trying to compete, you're trying to win, you're trying to move inventory, super important with a cash intensive business model. You need to win. And so even if you chose to just match the price, well, what happens when one other seller, just one, begins to reprice below by a penny? The game has changed.
Exactly.
That's my philosophy take on the day. But I used to be completely against it. I was like, no, why are you doing this? But from my new perspective, having obviously a much larger sample size running Aura, it doesn't work the way you think it does. And I'll explain this oscillation, because this oscillation is not something that we designed. It's actually in Amazon's buy box data. We just visualized it and say, oh, why don't we just take advantage of the organic oscillation? It makes it a little bit better. So, okay, so we got that done. So we're going to reprice below by a penny. I just want to give some context as to the penny comment, because sometimes people are like, no, wait, hold on. Okay, so little thing we like to throw in here, whenever the competition is gone, right? So no competition, it's helpful to say what competition is. And this is what I was talking about earlier. Whenever you see the word competition, I'm just going to reword that as my competition type. So instead of when the competition is below your min price, it's when the buy box is below your min price. It's going to add a lot of clarity and a lot of context. We go ahead and reword this one a little bit. So this would just read when there is no competition, but your competition type is the buy box. So guess what? There's no competition. Your competition is the buy box. There is no buy box, AKA it's just suppressed.
Okay.
And so what we like to do is say, let's take your current price. Let's lower it by 2 pennies every 2 to 3 minutes until one of two things happen. You either reach your min price or you reactivate the buy box, whichever comes first. This way, if it ever happens, automatically going to be handled for you. You're good to go.
Let me ask a quick question before you move
Please.
on from there.
Yes.
Do you guys have any data on how often a buy box is getting unsuppressed, like when using this kind of price cycling?
Good question. I have not looked at the average time, but I may be able to pull it from our database, because I'd be curious to see that too.
That'd be
Because
really fascinating.
Yeah, right. And there's such a wide variety where on some listings, I'll have a user reach out and say, hey, it went through the whole thing and we reached our min and we never reactivated it. But if you look at their min prices versus the historical average, it's still way high. And so in Amazon's view, yes, the market shifted up, but in just way too much, right? And then it's kind of sticking there, and their algorithm is saying, hey, statistically, this is too high, in which case you're going to have to lower your min price, which is not the ideal outcome that you really want.
Right.
But again, we're playing in Amazon's house here, right? And so sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow, but it's like, hey, all we can do is lower the min price. We've been testing in those situations. Let's go ahead and lower your min price, not to get sales lower, just to reactivate the buy box, and then slowly, penny by penny, which we can automate with a different kind of strategy, just raise your price every 2 to 3 minutes by a penny. So we can reactivate the buy box, but slowly raise that market back up into an acceptable range, and then hold it there, sell out of our inventory still profitably, and then just move on. Or, maybe we can pull the market back up. It really depends. There's a lot of, exclusion, I guess you would say. Like there's a lot of scenarios that you would never consider, and they're so unique and sensitive. You're like, okay, we're going to take some time here. We're going to figure this thing out,
Right.
create a unique strategy for it, all that good stuff. Automation is great for handling routine tasks, but some of the more outlandish ones, we just got to sit down and work through. That's actually what the majority of my day is, which I enjoy. It's kind of fun, but no, that's a great question. I'm going to see if I can pull some data on that.
Yeah. Interesting.
Cool. So the next section here, I always have these two as use min. They're going to seem completely redundant in a second, but the only time these change is, again, based off my competition type. So as an example, I was helping a user today. Their competition type was lowest FBA. And they're like, Dillon, I'm staying at my max price. What's going on? Well, this was set to use min. This was set to use min. And how we're going to change this, which I'll go ahead and do now to illustrate my point, was set to use max price. So this is when our price reaches our min price, which these two would do, go to our max price. This is the second step of this oscillation, right? Well, the issue when your competition type is the lowest FBA is that the lowest FBA may not be in the buy box. The buy box might be at 25, the lowest FBA seller at 20, and your price being at 21, your min price. Well, in that case, you're going to be at your max price. So in those situations, when I'm targeting the lowest FBA seller, I'm actually just going to ignore them. Say, hey, you're not within my min-max range. You're irrelevant. We're good here. I really don't like going lowest FBA. Even on very, very aggressive strategies, I, again, almost 98% of the time use the buy box and target that. So for our purposes, we're still targeting the buy box. So when the buy box is at or below our min price, we're going to go to our min price. But once that happens, we're going to go to our max price. This is that rebound that I showed you earlier, right? So the reprice below by a penny, this is that push down. We're gaining buy box ownership percentage here. And then, get that scroll. And then down here, this is resetting the price itself. So we can start that loop all over. Two very, very seemingly simple, but very important settings within your strategy. Any questions on that before I move forward?
I don't think so. No.
Hopefully that makes sense. Okay.
It makes sense. It makes sense to me. We have some questions, but they'll be better at the end.
Sure. So let's move on. The maintenance section, I'll quickly go over this. It's pretty simple. Instead of saying, hey, you're in the buy box, let me just slowly raise your price until you get kicked out of it. That's not really a good strategy. It kind of logically as a human makes sense, but if you look at the situation from a technical standpoint, it really doesn't. It's actually far more complex. If you look at the data, it's like, it doesn't really give you the outcome you thought you would have.
Okay.
And so instead, we raise your price relative to the next lowest buy box eligible offer. This is 9 times out of 10 an FBA offer. So in this situation, based off the current settings, which is what I recommend, if you're in the buy box and let's say you're at $20, but the next lowest FBA seller is at 22. Based off this setting, we would raise your price to within a penny of that seller. So we're not going to take you to 22. We're going to take you to $21.99. So the penny, this value here is the difference or the delta between that. So this is basically repricing below by a penny, but you're repricing higher, if that makes sense. It's the reverse. Yep. I like this to be a little bit more conservative. If you're concerned, 2, maybe 3 pennies. I don't do large percentages here because, again, I want to make more money in terms of profit. Sales are great, revenue's sexy, profit's even better. And so this helps maximize that. And what's kind of funny is this is actually what we're taking advantage of in other people's strategies. So what we're doing in the pursuit section, whenever we go to this max price, we're banking on the fact that they probably have a setting similar to this. But here's why it's not as big of a vulnerability for us. Because let's say it begins to happen. Let's say another seller using another tool begins this price oscillation or price cycling strategy. Well, we're probably faster because we've done a lot of testings on it. There's a few tools that we know for a fact we're 60% quicker in terms of the repricing itself.
That's crazy.
But just having that alone means that we jump out in front. We just need a signal, hey, that's what you're doing. Okay. And then we just get out in front. And so what is their weakness due to the speed becomes our strength. Even if somebody does do this, we're still going to pop up. We're not going to give up money, but we're able to take advantage of it when they do it. It seems like the same setting, but in how quickly you're able to do so determines who is 9 times out of 10 the price leader. And so that's what we're doing here. You can set this to lower and raise. Lower and raise, obviously lower, just the opposite of raise. If you're at 20, the next lowest FBA buy box eligible seller is at, let's say I said 20, they're at 1980. Well, that might be more aggressive. That might be a better offer. We'll probably take you to the 1980 because we know we can get you a little bit more sales there. We're taking advantage of the economics, right? We can lower your price, get you more sales. When we're being aggressive, I like this. When we're trying to maximize our profit, but still move inventory, I'm going to go with price above, or I'm sorry, raise price by a penny.
Okay.
Cool. And then min-max pricing. This is less important for our purposes tonight. You can set these however you want manually based off an ROI. I like these. So I'm the guy who likes to automate everything. I will probably spend 3 hours automating something, even if it, would have taken me 3 hours to just do it itself. Like I'll make it work. I like this kind of stuff, but there's some situations, key point, the one we're talking about tonight, where manually setting something actually provides more ROI. So setting automatically a maximum ROI is incredibly difficult because you either stifle a price or you set it too high and it becomes slightly irrelevant. So what I've been recommending is you set the minimum ROI, profit margin, or fixed profit automatically. As an example, I might set this to 20%, but I'm going to leave the maximum ROI empty or put a placeholder. Putting it as empty is okay. But if you're dealing with a lot of listings, you might want to go ahead and put a placeholder so that as it's repricing and as you're going through and manually setting the maximum, the max prices, there's at least something here. Because if there is no max price and we are trying to take you to your max price, well, we can't logically, right? So you're just going to sit at your min. And so if you're like, hey, I've got a few hundred listings, I can get through this tonight, not that big of a deal. You might already have max prices that make sense. Leave it blank. Or I might just say, you know what? 400 is a little high, but it gives me a good benchmark. And what I can do is I can go ahead, set this, and let's just set this as test strategy. Can create that. I'll just add it to a listing. I always love the confetti. I don't know why.
It is a great little flair that I've never seen anywhere else for a repricer.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? I'm a fan here. Okay, so let's say we apply it here. I'm just gonna throw in, a random cost. We're not gonna be able to see the full ones here just because these are dead listings. You're not gonna actually be able to pull in the fees here. But let's say we automatically calculated the min. Let's see, what's that? 9. Let's assume no fees times 1. We did 20%. So that's going to be 10.8. And let's say we did the 400%. So 9 times 4 is 36. So these are what we automatically calculated. Not a big deal, but that 36 might be too high. We might, whenever we're looking at the listing, and what we talked about earlier is looking for that next group of FBA offers and prices, we might find the 1080 is pretty good, but this actually needs to be closer to 25. Well, I can just jump in here, even if it's automatically set, override it, hit enter, and you'll see this little yellow icon that says, hey, you're automatically setting these, but you did it manually. That's okay. Just here, just in case you need to know, yes, you're setting these yourselves. That's not a bad thing. It's not an error. Yellow does not mean anything bad, but that's what I would do. So if you want to have like a placeholder for your maxes, I would just do that process. It's going to have one there in place until you can go through. Or you might say, you know what? My max prices are actually pretty good, automatically calculated. I don't need to do the manual side. Not a problem. From a workflow standpoint, working with some users, what we've been suggesting and seeing work really well if you use Inventory Lab is as you're listing, you're already looking at those sellers and those offers. So while you're there, you can go ahead and determine what a max price that makes sense would be. Now, what's cool is you can, using our uploads feature, if you're setting the max price in Inventory Lab, when you export a closed batch file, it includes mins and maxes.
Yes, it does.
So what's great is if you don't put a min price, you can just leave that blank. It's not a big deal because that column comes with that export, or you can just delete the column itself, leave the max prices. And whenever you upload, you have already set these. And if you use the uploads, and by the way, you should, because it's kind of great. It allows you to do a lot of things that you otherwise would have to do iteratively. So whenever you're using the uploads, especially if you're using a template. So let me pull one up here and I'll give you a little rundown.
The uploads have been killer. It's just
we have
so
some
awesome.
stuff coming your way that you'll enjoy way more. Let me get this opened up and then I'll share it. But honestly, this is going to save you a ton of time. Let me just get Excel pulled up, because you can do a lot of cool things. You can make things like changes, and instead of doing 3 separate tasks, you can wrap them all up into one upload, submit it, and walk away and go back to your life. So let me share how to do this. Let me jump over to Zoom. I'm just going to change my share options here. And then I'm just going to share Excel. Okay, so this is our current template. Now, if you're using the closed batch from Inventory Lab or the inventory evaluation, it's going to look different, but you can still add these columns that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to clean this up and explain to you how we would utilize this in the manner of which we're talking. So some of these columns you can make changes to. Most of them you cannot. They're just reference purposes only. This is basically the maximum. If you want to add in min price, that I would really, we need cost. Where did my cost go? There we go. Sorry. It's like, where's my cost? It looks way too short. Here we go. I'll just leave min prices in there too. That's totally fine. So let's say I've got my file, got my SKU, my marketplace ID, super important for Aura. These are the 2 columns you have got to have. We have our costs. Let's just say, make this easy. These are all $9. Make it nice for us. Min prices, we're going to leave out because we're going to have our strategy automatically calculate this for us. Cool. Might as well delete that. You can leave it empty. It's not a problem. Let's say all of our max prices, just to make it easy for me, are all $20. Great. Now there's two columns that are really interesting. Strategy ID and repricing enabled. These you can make changes to. So
interesting.
Whenever I upload this, let's say I want to apply a specific strategy. I can do that. Let me, oh, you know what? I'm sharing not all the things. Hold on. Here we go. I'm just going to share the entire desktop. That makes way more sense. There we go.
I didn't know. I actually didn't know you could do this part. This is going to be nice. I
Okay,
see where
you're
going.
going to love this.
I see where you're going, and I like it.
Okay. So we want to apply the test strategy we just created, right? Minimize some stuff out of here. Let me zoom in. Bam. Now it's full screen. Now this little blue link down here, that's your strategy ID. Now it's clickable. So I might have to pull out here to grab it. What I do is I click on the name. I'm in the strategy settings, and then I just go to the URL. You see ID equals, and then that's my ID.
Nice.
I copy that. I'm going to jump back over to Excel. I'm going to zoom in here because now we're not fully focused on just this. I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Now I can apply that to all of them. Let's say this is my main strategy. I just want to apply this to all of them. So based off where it's at right now, if I upload this and this is new inventory, let's say that I just shipped in, we got to have these. That's great. I'm going to go ahead and apply a cost of $9. Well, I'm applying this strategy, which is automatically creating my min prices. So those are going to be created based off my 20% ROI. And I'm going to go ahead and set a max price of $20. Now, these are going to override the 400% that we put in. Not a big deal. Totally fine. But you know what? I'm not done. I also have to toggle on repricing. And I really don't want to go one by one. You know what? Let's change this false to a true. Apply that to all of these. So whenever I upload this, it's going to find my SKU. It's going to know, hey, it's this marketplace, so it's my account. That's always kind of helpful. Apply a min or a cost. Apply this strategy, which is going to create and automatically apply my min prices, my max prices, but I'm going to override those because I want a little bit more control there, and it's going to toggle on repricing. What's great though, is let's say you did the inventory lab close batch export. All you would really need to do is add this column, set these to true, apply your strategy ID, come over to the uploads page, upload it, hit submit feed, and you're done for the day. That's it. That's all you need to do.
And so save me like 2 hours a week.
Right. And so previously you would upload your cost mins and maxes, and then you say, okay, well, I need to go ahead and apply my strategy. I need to toggle on repricing. No, don't do any of that. Save your time. Just do it in Excel. I love Excel. I'm obviously a finance major. One of my classes is financial modeling, and literally our textbook, one of the two, is the Excel Bible for 2019. You can do a lot of cool things with Excel. Don't be afraid of it. It's this little workflow that is fantastic. And here's what's cool. If you want to get a little nerdy, and if you guys know who I am, I'm definitely that person. I like Google Sheets, oddly enough, a lot more than Excel. Mm-hmm. And so what I would do, and what I have done, is create a macro in a Google Sheet, of which I would take my export data, I would paste it in there. It would then create these two columns automatically for me. I would hit one button, it would do this. Then I would export it from Google Sheets, upload it in here, and move about my life. And if you want to get even more nerdy, you can automate that process too using a tool like Keyboard Maestro. I've just about automated as many things in my life as I can. I was showing a classmate tonight. He freaked out because I was doing some automation on my iPhone. He's like, wait a second, hold on. And it's not that you have to, obviously, it's just how nerdy do you want to be, but get rid of all the macro and stuff. If you just apply those two columns to that sheet before you upload it, you will save yourself a ton of time. Right now we're transitioning back over into the usability. We're handling some bugs from a development standpoint. So the tool's still not perfect where we want it to be at from a workflow standpoint. Mm-hmm. But now we're thinking through those things. And there's a few things that we're strategically approaching this with, that if we do it in the right sequence, we can give you a lot more workflow and hopefully some automations, some awesome workflow stuff. Yeah. So,
all right, I got a couple questions. I also need to take, guys. We are going to be doing a giveaway like I do every week, and I forgot to share this earlier. But since we're doing the giveaway, I do need you guys to fill out your first name and your first initial, your last name, so I can actually do the drawing. And I forgot to share this at the beginning as usual. So make sure to drop your name in there. I just dropped a link to a Google form, not asking for an email or anything. We're going to pull these live and give away some cool things. So make sure to drop those in there, and we'll pull those at the end. We've got a couple questions from folks, and then I want to talk a little bit about maybe some theory with you.
Sure.
Because I think that as Amazon sellers, we tend to focus too much, like, oh, this guy's driving the price down. I freaking hate him and all this stuff. I want to talk about why we should maybe embrace that as sellers. Sure. Instead of, I actually saw someone out someone else's storefront in a Facebook group and say, I hate this guy. And I understand, but there's also a reason to do this kind of stuff. So
there is. We have to get, again, I come from the community. I come from this from being a seller. So like I viewed it that same way. Why can't we all share the buy box? Well, we're entrepreneurs, we're business owners. Therefore, theoretically, we all really like capitalism, which is a competitive marketplace. Competition is not bad. It actually forces you to be a better operator, in my opinion. It's great. And I like the saying, I don't know where I pulled it from, but play chess, not checkers. Checkers is very like laissez-faire. Hey, that's the buy box. Let it ride. Playing checkers or playing chess is a few more moves ahead, right? It's a little bit more strategic. And what's interesting is when you can get to that place as a seller and you can go, you know what? There's probably a reason why. Now, if somebody's just tanking a price, yeah, that's dumb. Don't just do that. But if there's strategy and you see there's a pattern, don't say that person's dumb. They don't know what they're doing. They're probably a newbie. They might just know something you don't yet.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have this open mindset of maybe there's something there, maybe I need to investigate, you might stumble upon a competitive advantage that pulls you ahead of the curve. To me, regardless of the business model, I want as many competitive advantages as possible. That means innovating a little bit, right? That means looking for things and patterns that other people may not see, or they may see it as a weakness when in fact it's a strength. That's interesting. And so this whole push down by a penny, again, we're not tanking the price. I just kind of went over how we can actually utilize this strategy and increase your average sale price. You made more money by lowering your price by a penny. It's incredibly counterintuitive without the broad context. But that's kind of where I live.
Yeah.
I like these things, right? I like these little decisions that if you make them correctly, it can completely change your business. I have a lot of friends, obviously, who are sellers, and when their businesses got to a place where it made sense for them to use a repricing tool, it's like, hey, come use Aura. Like, I'll help you out. We'll take care of it. I'll walk you through the strategies that I like, the stuff we're talking about here. And Tuesday, I was talking to one of them, Jill, and she's like, hey, just so you know, we've increased like sales dramatically from that single strategy, and I've done nothing else since. Think of what that means. I mean, you should be able to increase your sales by at least 15 to 25% with a repricing tool, assuming you're doing everything manually beforehand. But what if we can get that closer to 40, 50, 60, maybe 70%?
Mm-hmm.
Now imagine what that does compounded over time. We talked about before, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. What if I can do that every single day for the next 3 years? The trajectory of your business. This is what I love. I don't care about your revenue today. What's the growth rate? What's the derivative, the trajectory here? What if we can change that? Because now the line's not like this, it's like this. For a lot of sellers, that's what they want. And that's what I'm focused on. It's that competitive nature that matters. And again, I get the whole, it should be fair and we should all just share. We don't live on a compound. We're trying to make, a lot of us are doing this and we have families to feed, right?
Exactly.
This is competition. And it forces you, again, from a wholesale standpoint where I come from, you might say, oh, you just tanked the price and left. Maybe, maybe not. I like doing this and having another seller go, man, this is just too crazy, and never place a restock order. But I stay on there for 2 years. You know what I mean? But if you understand the game that is being played, you can play more, effectively within it. That's a good place to get to as a seller. It is more advanced. It is more strategic. But that's how you grow as a business owner, right?
I use this strategy, and I did this with one particular listing where they were being a jerk.
Yeah.
They have stopped repricing.
Yeah.
They just completely stopped and said, I can't deal with this guy anymore. And now we just share the buy box. Well, I'm typically a penny lower than him, but
but even if you went back to that, that's okay, right? You at least you stopped the chaos, and that's not a bad strategy, right? You just said, hey, stop repricing. I mean, I've seen people reprice below by like 15 cents. I'm like, what are you doing?
Exactly.
You're giving too much up, right? Like you're not taking advantage of the economic like dynamics here, right? You're literally just pushing it down, and it's too volatile. We want volatility, oddly enough, but too much volatility, no, it's not good.
Exactly.
But yeah, it's very interesting. It doesn't make sense until you experience it. You're like, all right, it clicked. We're good here. Let's move forward.
Absolutely. Let's go over a few questions.
Yes.
Let's see here. Yes or no, so if there are 2 or more sellers using a repricer tool outside of Aura, how do they react to this amongst each other? Could they stay at the bottom and battle it out?
Yeah, it really depends. Every listing can be slightly different. And so there is a situation where, let's say you push down, you bounce back up, and then they just stay there. They just didn't come back up. Now, that could be a bad thing. I don't view it as a bad thing because they're going to sell out quicker. And if they got 5 units, hey, take the buy box for a few hours. We're good here. because
Right.
I'm getting rid of competition, they're probably not going to restock if it's a replenishable, because in their mind, behaviorally, they just said, just tanked. And I go, yep, it sure did. And then they sell out. It bounces back up to the next lowest FBA seller, which is me. Now I control the market at a much higher price point.
Exactly.
Right. So again, strategically, if you just isolate that one situation, you'd be like, oh, that's terrible. Maybe, maybe not. How do those other two players play in that realm? I've seen a little bit more variety. We've done it where we've had 5 FBA sellers and we literally just took them in a circle, all of them. It was absolutely fantastic. In certain situations, yeah, you might have a few more that are willing to go a bit lower than you. But I found that a lot of sellers still have this, like, once I reach my min price freak out moment, and they're either going to have a clause in their strategy that pulls them up for whatever reason, whatever the logic is there, and there's like 2 to 3 options, or they just manually do it because there's like, oh my gosh, it's too low.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it depends. Right. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it works really well for the large majority of listings, but there's always a listing that's just like, it's an exception.
Yeah.
And that's
you
what we
are
want.
you are going to come up across that new person who doesn't
God,
have
yeah.
a repricer and doesn't know what they're doing.
And they're literally, there's no pattern. It's pure chaos. I like those. Those are kind of fun to watch from like a technical standpoint. But again, it's not a bad thing. What I like to do from a strategy standpoint, I want a strategy that's really robust. The one we built actually is. It may not seem like it, but it factors in a lot of things. And it factors in a lot of situations that, you know, if you don't have a high response time to them, you can completely lose out. And so building the way we did builds in a lot of those situations, like the suppressed buy box, right? Like, we want to react very quickly to that, because now we're on the line of like, hey, we need sales here. Oddly enough, some sellers like keeping the buy box suppressed. I don't know. Like, I sell like really high. I'm like, yeah, but it takes you like 2 weeks to sell 2 units. Not really worth it, in my opinion. But everybody's different.
And suppressed buy boxes have gotten a lot worse than they used to be. It used to not really be a big deal, you know, but I'm seeing them more and more frequently now. And I'm going to call it this Q4, suppressed buy boxes are going to be more prevalent than any other Q4 in the past. Matter of fact, there's already, I shouldn't say the name of the product because people will get pissed, but there's already a product that is hot currently, and it is, I mean, they suppressed it hard, and they wouldn't even let you price it to a certain point. They just kicked you off and said, no, you cannot sell it at this price, period. That's crazy. Which I thought was fascinating.
And let me put an asterisk here too. Unfortunately, because we have a large sample size, there are situations where we're helping a user look at a listing and they're like, we just cannot make this work. People are just crushing us. You always have to consider the fact that it might have been a bad buy and that your cost was too high. It's a really hard pill to swallow for us as Amazon sellers to say, I just bought too high. I might have to lose a little bit on this one. It's a sunk cost. Okay, let's just get that out of the way. You can hold it for 3 weeks hoping to break even, or you can move it today, get your capital back, respend it on something profitable, and still be more profitable in the long run during that 2 to 3 week period where you just held it. Sometimes mathematically it does financially even just make sense to sell at a slight loss, right? We're not just trying to give stuff up, but listen, if the market's at $8 and you bought at 18, that's probably bad, right? So just keep that in mind. I think it's something to look out for, because it's hard from my standpoint, you know, because I handle all of our support. When it's like, hey, all we can do is lower the min price here. I mean, it's just, that's the only option. And unfortunately, either you bought too high or the market's just, for whatever reason, driven down outside of an oscillation. This is a full market. Like, there's a difference between oscillating a buy box price because you're playing in a tight range and the market just shifted down $10. Completely different, right? Because somebody got a buy cost that is profitable at that price.
Somebody bought a liquidation or whatever.
Right.
It happens.
And that could be short term. It could be long term. It could be a correction. So what I like about being finance major, I can take those concepts and apply it here. I'm like, oh, that makes so much more sense now.
Right. I've said this in the past, and in these weekly shows, I've said it on on other people's, shows. We've got to stop. We've got to stop looking at every single ASIN like it's the only part of your business, and
Oh yeah.
realize that your profitability matters on your entire
Mhm.
SKUs.
It's
It's
the
not.
average, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
And
don't.
I
I
think
don't
a
care if
lot
I
of
make a dollar.
sellers, right. And a lot of sellers are so focused on the unit economics, right?
Hmm.
The idea that like, well, Dylan, yeah, I'm getting more sales, but you lowered my price by 20 cents. I'm like, yeah, I mean, if you just isolate that, I get it from a unit economic standpoint, but what happened? But like, let's say we did that, but we increased your sales velocity by 20 to 30%. Well, if we zoom out and do a holistic, like a macro calculation, you still made more money. So
Exactly.
sometimes it does make sense. And by the way, if you lower your price 10 cents, you're not losing money, especially if your min price is at 50% ROI. I hear
Right.
this all the time. These terms get thrown around like, oh, I'm losing money. I'm like, wait, you're like 30% above your min of 50% ROI.
Exactly.
It's opportunity, completely different, but I like to kind of make that caveat.
Absolutely.
Super, super important.
Do you guys have a go live date yet for Aura in the UK marketplace?
We don't right now. It's, with us being a smaller team, because we're bootstrapped, so we didn't raise money. We've been revenue first. We've done it all ourselves from scratch with nothing. That means we have to make tough decisions with our roadmap. Only James is a developer. I'm not. I can hack together a script and it slightly works. So you don't want me to be developing or doing any of the engineer work, but we are focused on getting that out. I want to say within Q4, I think it's a good time for us to transition to that. It's not that it's a difficult thing to do. It just doesn't make sense at this moment. I know it's hard to say that from different perspectives. But with us looking at our entire roadmap, all the things we want to add, all the things we want to fix, the things we're currently doing, means we have to prioritize and deprioritize other things. I can't say that that's something we want to push for heavily.
Awesome.
UK marketplace, German marketplace, EU. Like I want to be open as much as possible because I mean, why not? I mean, it really makes sense,
Yeah.
but it is a larger project. I can say that, during the next quarter, especially our current 2-week sprint, we're spending a lot of time focusing on hiring. So hiring our first employee, it's full stack engineer. And so
Awesome.
if that's our current bottleneck, if you will, if we had to classify it that way, because James can only work so many hours without burning out, that's a good solution. So that's what we're focusing on right now too, is it's balancing still doing new engineering work while also hiring and building out that core team, because that first hire is so crucial. If the culture fit's not there, it's not going to work. And so we're making sure we take the time to hire the right person first and foremost. And then once that's done, it's moving very, very quickly because there's so many things. Like if I could just like extract all the things that I want to do, that James wants to do, add those to a spreadsheet, it would be incredibly extensive. And so sometimes we have to be like, all right, we're geeking out about this idea. We got to set that aside for a second, work over here. And sometimes it's the opposite, right?
Absolutely.
But yeah, we're definitely working on that. I can't give you an exact ETA. It's hard giving ETAs being a bootstrap small team because things change so frequently. But I can say that is something that is important to us that we are focusing in on. I'm trying to aim for Q4 to get that rolled out.
Awesome. Just as an aside, did you happen to read the extremely long post that the founder of Gumroad put up on Medium about bootstrapping? Okay,
No.
when you have time, Google it. I
Yeah.
can't think of his name, but Gumroad is bootstrapped, and the founder put up just an incredible piece
I
about.
love Medium, by the way.
Yeah, me too. The
I
highs.
spend way too much
time. Right. He put up a great post about the highs and the lows. And there,
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for you guys, but everybody else who is a seller, it's also really fascinating because most of us are bootstrapped. I mean, we're not getting a small $1 million loan from our father to get started.
Right. Well, and it makes it tough. I think that's an important factor. And it's hard sometimes getting users to understand that because it is painful sometimes when you're like, hey, Dylan, I need this feature. And I'm like, I know, but like we have this whole picture that we have to make all the puzzle pieces fit in the right way, in the right sequence. And being bootstrapped means you can't just go hire 3 engineers.
Right.
I don't think that's a bad thing, but there's always going to be growing pains. I mean, we're coming up on our full first year of being live and operational. And we're private with numbers, but I can say we've done incredibly well, and we're succeeding. In my opinion, we've overcome the goals and milestones that we set for ourselves. But with that is like, hey, like whole new ball game. What needs to happen here? You know, how can we better serve our users? And it does make it harder because I can't just go hire 2 people for customer support. So we have 24/7 support. I can't just, you know, so like when I'm in class, I'm handling support tickets. It's not a bad thing, but,
No.
but I think it's important, right? It's this level of hustle that regardless of the business model, you can learn from bootstrapped software companies, things and principles that you can apply to your bootstrap, you know, physical products business. That's
Exactly.
kind of fun to me, you know, and I've made that transition, and there's so much overlap. But yeah, I'm gonna have to find that.
I'll find the link and
Okay.
I'll send it to you.
Awesome.
Let's see here. We got one from YouTube here. We did SK Packs. We did talk about how the inventory lab integration works currently and how you can upload your files. So you may just want to go back a little bit during the replay. Yasser says,
I have,
yeah, go ahead.
Not to cut you off, but like we also wrote a help desk article. So if you go to help.goaura.com and you just search for inventory lab, there's a guide on here's the 2, and it links out to their support documentation as well. Here's the 2 export files. So if you're doing like the first big batch, like you just sign up for Aura, that's great. Use the inventory valuation. If it's a new shipment, use a closed batch. You export it. You don't have to do all the crazy stuff we went over tonight, but I would urge you to add those columns, save it, and then just drag it into the uploads page, hit submit. If you have any errors on that, just send them to, just jump in support, say, hey, Dillon, here's the feed title, had some errors. I will go through it and completely correct it for you and let you know what's going on. So don't feel like you're stuck there. I saw a question earlier was, you know, their files are TXT based. We do and can support TXT or CSV. They have to be tabbed eliminated. I prefer CSV personally, but
me too.
Don't feel like you have to convert that. We support both TXT and CSV. If you, again, because my textbook is Excel, I gave a presentation on this last week. TXT and CSV, they're both basically the same thing. From like an Excel standpoint, that's kind of what we process it as. So don't feel like you have to convert it. Ideally, if you can, it's not a big deal. Save it as a CSV though.
Yeah, I will be honest. The day that you guys pushed that, I did it without reading the directions and didn't screw anything up. So it is fairly intuitive.
Yeah.
And
it's not ideal. It's not the ideal solution right now. I'll be the first one to say it, like being transparent about this kind of stuff. That's not the ideal outcome. That's just, it's a stepping stone for right now. So I can say that.
Absolutely. Let's see here. Does it reprice when you're the only FBA seller, but it's not selling, or it's a bad buy?
Yeah. So it depends on your competition type. So typically if you're going to have the competition type as only buy box and you're the only seller with that, no. We can take the inverse of a strategy that I've played around with some sellers where they said, Dillon, I'm the only FBA seller. I'm in the buy box. I want to slowly raise my price and see if I can maximize it. I said, okay. So we target a competition type of lowest FBA when there are no competitors, because in this case, there actually aren't. We're utilizing that buy box suppression strategy, but instead of repricing below by 2 pennies, we're pricing plus 1 penny every 2 to 3 minutes. So we're slowly creeping our price up. Now, the caveat here, Aura does not say, hey, you just got kicked out of the buy box, pull you back. It doesn't do that. So it's going to take you to your max price. So what I like to do, and I've helped users do this, is I create that strategy. We put, 2, 3 listings, whatever on it. And then I just routinely every few hours, I mean, it doesn't even need that be that high frequency because it's such a short or a slow increment. Just look at the listings. So if you're on the strategy page, you can see the number of listings that are applied, click that, and then you can see where you're at. And so what I would do is, let's say one did get, or not suppressed, but let's say got kicked out of the buy box at 24, but your price and max is at like 25. I would just pull my max to 24. It'll catch that, pull you back down, and now you're at your max price. What you could do is the kind of inverse of that. So you would still utilize that same concept, but instead of pricing above by a penny, price below by a penny. So if you're the only one and you kind of want to push it down a little bit, it's not a big deal. You could totally do that. Just you might want to consider raising your min price because you might not want to push it down too much, right? Ideally, we get to a point where we have some idea with maxes, like we can dynamically set those. That's an incredibly complex project that we have on the books, which is gonna be pretty cool. James might not like me saying that, but it's kind of cool either way. So, but yeah, it's how do we find that optimal, the price point, right? Like that equilibrium. It's hard to do that with so many other offers happening at once. So it's hard for us to justify pushing like a feature that does that, because it's only when you're the only seller that you can find true equilibrium, right? Because we have a buy box factor, right? It's not true economics because we have some other biases built in, like Amazon's algorithm. Right. But you can kind of somewhat do that. It's a little bit more work, but you got to always consider what's my competition type, what's Amazon or what's Aura looking for. And if it's the buy box, we're the only one in it, there's no other sellers, where's the logic that could move our price, right?
Exactly.
And so that's kind of important to keep in mind, like think through that logic there. And you'll actually be able to design some interesting strategies yourself, just thinking through that logic.
Absolutely. Couple more questions. It's getting to be 9:30, and I know that Dylan's probably got homework. So one, SK Pack says, love Aura. For their MF strategy, is there any way for my projected shipping cost to be put into the strategy? They've just been adding their best guess for shipping to their individual purchase price.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I've been working with a lot of sellers that are more heavy on the merchant fulfilled. And so we've been working through some ideas of what makes sense. I like the idea, even just globally saying, hey, here's a new input field that applies to all my strategies. That might be, here's my prep cost. So maybe I average that, or I know what it is per unit. It might be, say 20 cents per unit. And so you put in your cost and then we just automatically include that, but you just have one field. You don't have to do that for every listing, right? It just applies. We could probably do that for shipping as well. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? If you have another shipping fee, why not create another field that is like prep cost and then, my shipping fee, and maybe we just have a toggle that says, hey, use my shipping fee. Or we just line item that per listing. We're trying to figure out like the best use case for that. But yeah, it's an interesting one. For right now, I would take it and just add it to your current cost, right? So if your cost is $20, your shipping is 10, just make your cost in Aura $30. Not ideal. And something, this goes hand in hand with bootstrapping. You'll launch with what you got, and then you take a ton of feedback of what sucks and what's great, and then you just make it better. Because there's a lot of things you're not going to, like, I never would have honestly considered shipping costs because I've never done merchant fulfilled.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, I never would have thought, but that makes so much sense. Now I feel dumb not thinking about that, but yeah, so that's actually added to our roadmap. I can't, again, give you an exact ETA just because every 2 weeks we have a sprint and we have what's called a retro. We just sit down for a few hours. We close out the previous week, what went well. And then, hey, what really makes sense to work on that we can get done in 2 weeks. And then that's what we prioritize based off like a critical level structure. Nice. But yeah, something we definitely want to do, but the workaround right now is just include that cost also in your main cost, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Someone was asking you handle the wholesale webinars. They can check replays out in your venDrive Facebook group, right?
Yes. So let me grab a link.
Yeah. Drop a link in the chat and then shoot me the link as well so I can put it in the description after we're done here.
Perfect. Yeah. So every Tuesday night, it was every single Tuesday I was doing nothing but live sourcing wholesale. And I kind of got burnt out on it, if I'm being honest, because not a whole lot has actually changed. And so I've kind of been geeking out and I've kind of been mixing it up. So here's the link if you guys want to jump into the Facebook group. Yeah, it's really fun. If you guys want to learn about wholesale, that's kind of my area of expertise outside of repricing and automation, if you will. At venDrive.com/blog, that if you want to save money on an expensive wholesale course, just go through those blog posts. They're not fluffy. Here's literally how to do X, Y, and Z in depth. Go one by one and you'll learn more than you would ever wish to know about wholesale. That's actionable. We also have Wholesale Made Easy, which is a podcast that I run. I have been pushing out podcast episodes lately because I think we've really gone over a lot of stuff. I'm debating creating a new podcast brand that is more like advanced, like nerdy stuff.
Oh,
If
that'd be
that makes
cool.
sense. Yeah, I want
Yeah.
to do like some advanced, like, new age seller kind of stuff, because there's so much technology we can talk about that doesn't really fit with like Wholesale Made Easy branding.
I'm really
But yeah,
fascinated. I'm really fascinated by chatbots and how to use it with an Amazon business. And I know the PL guys are crushing it.
yeah,
And I just talked to a wholesale buddy of mine, and he's doing really well launching a wholesale product.
interesting.
And then if we're talking about OA and RA, like I could see you creating your own bundle, of retail products and
sure.
then launching it. And it's so easy to target people on YouTube or sorry, YouTube would actually be great, but Facebook and even Google. And I think you just absolutely crush it and then own a customer at the same time.
Yeah.
Which,
I mean, there's so much opportunity, especially from the wholesale standpoint. And I'm giving a talk in Q1, so in January, I believe it's like mid to late January. And we're talking one about the first presentation I'm doing is, how do I approach wholesale? Because I really do break it out in a very easy to execute way. Like it's not complicated. Even with the advanced stuff, it's really not. Like we can draw it on a napkin. But the second one is, how do you use currently available technologies to automate your business even further? I mean, there's so many things that are not really complicated to use that are cheap that can save you a ton of time and make you more money. And they're, oh my God, it gets so amazing. That's the stuff I'm really into lately. And it's just having an outlet to be able to talk about that stuff and people not be like, what in the world are you talking about, Dillon? But there's a lot of value. We talked about the competitive advantages earlier. This is one of them. And being able to get in the loop on these kind of technologies, they're not expensive. Robotics it's an exponential curve, guys. Like robotics are getting cheap. We're about to have fully automated prep centers that cost 10 cents per unit. I'm telling you now, like I'm trying to probably do one myself at some point.
Oh, that'd be cool.
But yeah, but to get back on track, if you guys want to learn about wholesale, we got the blog, we got the podcast, we got the Facebook group. But every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I sit down for an hour and a half. I will sometimes do a lot of live sourcing, but if you go to the video section of the Facebook group, all of them are posted there and you can watch it step by step. But I do Q&A. So like, I like talking about the business side of things too, right? Like I like to drill into specific people and say, what's your biggest problem now? Like what's your biggest bottleneck? And then creating a solution that you can then take away and execute on. So by next week, your business is better. I don't charge for any of that. I just enjoy doing it. We've done it for years. And it works out pretty well. So
that's awesome. Let's see here. So Dana asked, do you have to have inventory lab? The answer is no to that one. That one's easy. Don't have to have inventory lab.
Just makes your life better.
Yeah, it does. It does make things easier. Yeah, but if you're using Exceller List or any of these other programs, or even if you're just creating them in Seller Central, you'll be able to get all that data, no problem. For price cycling, what are your criteria to select ASINs that would benefit? Now, I like to give my opinion. Yeah, and my opinion is you probably should not focus on a single ASIN. I would probably just do this on everything or on most things. And then if something is getting wonky or something's not moving, then I would start putting a magnifying glass on that particular ASIN. Because again, like my whole thing about the Amazon business, like I source like 2 to maybe 3 hours a day. Okay. And then Aura handles my repricing. Inventory Lab lets me know if I'm making money or not. And then if I have to magnify a small portion of it, I will. But I want to go coach my kid in basketball and work on other things. I don't want this. I try to make this as not time intensive as possible. So and my per hour income is higher because I do it that way rather than 100%. Me spending 16 hours a day at my desk doing this.
That's the way I approach everything. If I start a new task, I'm like, how do I automate this thing? Like if it's repeatable. So I do it the same way. What you shouldn't be doing is treating every listing as an exception. They're not. As a business owner, you should be spending more of your time on the exceptions and less of your time on the routine things. That being 80 to 90% of your listings that are just doing well. Don't spend much time on them. Let them do their thing, create the systems, the infrastructure to just handle them. And one thing I like to do from a workflow standpoint within Aura is, okay, if you want to look at the ones that might not be performing well, if we think through the logic, what would go bad? Well, we jump to our max price and nobody follows us. Well, then theoretically we would stay at our max price, correct? Well, if you're on the dashboard, if you scroll down a little bit and look to the right, there's a metric that shows all the listings that you're currently at your max price. Click on that number. It will show you all the ones you should look at. Some of them you're like, yeah, it's not a big deal. It's a short-term thing, whatever. Or, hey, that one's kind of an issue. Let me go ahead and lower my min price or maybe change a few things. And instead of looking at the thousands of listings you do have, you're only looking at the 10 to 20 that you should be looking at because they require your attention. You make a quick decision and you move on. That takes 15 minutes. That's awesome. That's what I want.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Another question was, how do you think this will affect you in Q4? And if you want to go ahead and answer that, and then I'm going to give my take on it too.
Yeah. So oddly enough, we have a lot of sellers that I talk to that are kind of on the fence about repricing because like, oh, I have MAP, like minimum advertising price with wholesale. It makes sense. But I'm like, okay, well, let's think about the upside here, right? Well, during Q4, regardless if you, let's just get rid of repricing down. I don't even care about that in this situation. Prices go up during Q4, even for wholesale MAP and forced pricing. So what happens when it's pure chaos because it's Q4, let's face it, that's all it is. And prices increase 200, 300, 400%, and you're trying to just play catch up to do all this. A repricing tool makes a lot of sense, just repricing up to take full advantage of Q4. If just isolated in that situation, it makes sense. Otherwise, we know there's so much volatility. If we get rid of the MAP context, RA, wholesale, doesn't matter. There's so much volatility. You cannot even now, but even more so during Q4, you will physically not be able to keep up manually changing prices. And what's even more important, because there are cheap repricing tools, and let's face it, if the goal is to win a car race and you choose the cheaper option, like a Honda Civic, and the next person has a Ferrari, yes, yours is cheaper, but you lost the race. That's what we're doing. That's my analogy here. And so I'm not saying you should go for the most expensive tool. I mean, we're certainly not the most expensive tool, but I say that because speed matters. If a tool charges you $25 a month, but reprices you every 15 minutes, even every 5 minutes maximum, you lose because there's a lot of things that can happen. Our average repricing speed on average globally is 1.5 minutes. That's considered instant repricing because there's a lag on Amazon side that we just can't factor out, right? So if you get rid of that lag, it's instant repricing. So we can handle 3,000 price changes per minute per user.
That's crazy.
And that's that's not even a cap. That's like soft. Like if we need to go above, we have AI on the server that looks for these things. We can go above if we need to. So Q4, that's when it matters, right?
Absolutely.
You can't keep up. And there's so much opportunity during Q4 that paying, right now our current prices are $97 a month. And you have a discount code we can offer people too. That's, I forget the actual price or discount you have specifically with us.
It's 20%.
Perfect. Yeah. So it's 20% for the first 3 months, right? So, and you get a 14-day free trial. And my point not to sell it is just like, think about that cost and the amount of opportunity during Q4 alone and what that can reclaim, right? So if that helps you reclaim, regardless of the tool, let's get rid of the tool. If that $99 or $97 helps you reclaim a potentially extra $1,000 to $3,000 during just the quarter, when that's probably a low assumption, it's worth it. It's got a pretty positive ROI. And that's what I'm thinking about. Volatility and upside. That's what I want.
My whole thing about Q4, and now I'm not bragging, but I do have daily payouts. Okay. So between being able to reprice so quickly and the fact that the sales volume is high for everybody, rising tide lifts all boats, and the fact that I know that I'm getting the buy box more often, I am able to flip my capital so quickly.
Yes.
that it's just, I mean, it's insane. Last
Yeah.
year we were taking like $5,000 payouts every single day because so much stuff was selling.
Yep.
And then we're able to go out and just buy again and again and again and again. And even though I don't have the largest war chest, I'm not flush with capital. Like, so I know some guys who have $1 million that they can
It's
spend.
nuts.
I don't have anywhere near that, but
Yeah.
I can flip my capital just as good as they can. So,
well, so that's an important point, and I want to illustrate that. So obviously, I'm a finance major. Like, a lot of what we talk about is like a compound frequency. That's all you're talking about right now, right? So if I said I can give you 20% ROI in a month, one time, you're like, yeah, that's pretty good. What if I gave it to you twice? So the first 2 weeks I gave you 20%, but then we took that plus the profit I just gave you and we gave you another 20% on top of that again. You made more money, right? So having somebody pay you interest daily, weekly is far better than quarterly, monthly, annually. We're taking it, and this is my whole point of like $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. Because yes, I can, and this is oddly interesting. A lot of people will scoff at making less than 50% ROI. But what if I can churn that every 3 to 4 days, once a week, whatever, and you're only doing it once a month? I made more money.
Exactly.
So it's less about how much capital you have and how efficient that capital is. That's my big picture, how efficient that is. And having that combination of daily payouts and repricing, oh my gosh, man, it's a solid win. It really is.
I did the math in a Facebook group one time about taking a 10% ROI, but flipping it twice a month over the course of a year. And then I compared it to, I think it was making 30% ROI, but only flipping once a month. And I mean, it was miles ahead. So, it's incredible.
Yeah. So I wrote something called the 7-Figure Blueprint. It's a free ebook. I wanted to illustrate a lot of stuff, and I talk about this. So a big thing that changed for me as a seller with wholesale was, instead of placing 1 month orders, I was placing them twice a month. And it doesn't seem like a big deal, but I ran the math. And here's what's interesting. I showed the ROI, but I actually didn't even compound the ROI because I knew people wouldn't believe me. It was already in the like tens of thousands. And I still have people being like, that I don't get it. I'm like, I know. But if you can work through this, because it's not crazy math, it's really not. But if you can understand compound frequencies and how having more yields a much higher aggregate ROI, oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Absolutely.
You can spend 10 grand once a month, or you can spend it twice a month.
Exactly.
The logic is amazing.
Exactly.
Game changer.
Now go get yourself an Amazon loan and don't worry about the 18% annual interest.
Yeah, exactly. 100%.
Yeah. All right. Okay. One last thing, and then we're gonna give some stuff away. We gotta let Dillon out of here, but I'm gonna have you back because I really enjoy talking with you and this kind of stuff.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
It's a lot of fun.
I
get it, man. Can you use Aura to replace collectible, used, or toys, books, electronics, etc.?
Yeah, let's touch on that. We can do used stuff. That's not an issue. You saw in that first section under the competitor section of the strategy builder, you can choose to compete against all conditions or same or better. Books is something that I care more to talk about because I like being very transparent about this. We're not perfect for books. We still are dealing with the whole Amazon API limitation. So what ends up happening is they send third-party tools, the top 20 offers or the lowest 20 offers. Mm-hmm. If that is completely full of merchant fulfilled offers, we never see the buy box. We never even see the lowest FBA seller. So we can't even reprice against it. There are some solutions around it. This is one of those things, again, being a small team, it's such a large project for us to go into. We're going to have to segment about a month and a half to really effectively do it like we want to, because we don't want to half it, right? It's something we want to solve, but I like being very transparent. If you have books, some of them are going to do phenomenally well. If they're not being affected by the API limitation, non-issue. If they are, it's going to be stagnated. So what we've seen a lot of sellers do, I'm not a massive fan of it, obviously, but I want something that works as a solution for your business. We have a lot of sellers that use us for their non-book listings, and they use, the only one I've heard makes sense for them is Reprice It. I've never used their tool. I don't even think I've looked at their site, to be honest. We don't consider them an actual competitor. I think we go for different segments of the market, not like I'm downplaying them. I just think we approach it differently, but I've seen and heard that be a good combination for right now. But if you're like 80, 90% books, I don't want you to jump in thinking it's going to be a silver bullet, because it won't be right now.
Yeah. So we were bulk books for a while, for maybe 6 to 8 months. And then I realized that dealing with gaylords of books is horrible.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah. At the time, Reprice it was awesome for books.
Yeah.
It was great. Christine and Hal said, we have seen our sales 130% increase by using Aura.
That's amazing.
Turning more products. Their problem now is buying enough product to keep the sales up.
That's what I want. I want you to not have a sales problem. I want you to have a capital problem.
Absolutely.
That honestly kind of low-key makes me a little emotional. Like,
right.
You know, it's like that feedback. That's awesome. Honestly, Christine, like that's phenomenal. That's what I'm here to do. That gets me jacked up. That's
yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for sharing that, guys. I really appreciate
seriously, that's amazing.
All right. Thanks for being here. If you want to stick around, I'm gonna give some stuff away. If not, I get it. But guys, I'm gonna share my screen again, and let's see here. I am going to copy the names into the wheel of giveaway, and let's see here, responses, and we're gonna give some stuff away. So tonight we've got we of course have OA Cheddar leads from my buddies over at oacheddar.com. And we also have, we got, let's see, 5 of those to give away. We also have 2 sets of bags from the Jonathan over at ilovesupplies.com. I'm going to give away 2 things of the Brickseek add-on. There's going to be a new video coming out for that next week, since I have it all fixed. I have not graduated to the big boy software yet like Dillon has. But I do have some extensions under my belt. And then we're also going to give away 2 IP alerts. So we got a couple extra prizes this week. Let me just pull up the chat, make sure we've got everything here. Julie, your name didn't go in there? No problem.
I see a Julie L.
Let's see here. Julie L. You know what? We will Control F.
Yeah, she said it's there.
There it is. All right, you're good.
As I was reading that, I was like, oh, I see it. That's good.
All right. So the first 5 are going to be for OA Cheddar. All right. So, and just remember, shoot me an email, chris@cleartheshelf.com, and either today or tomorrow or Saturday, I will make sure that I get all of that information over to you guys. So the first winner is Sylvia N. You go in OA Cheddar. Number 2 is Cash. So Cash, shoot me an email and I'll get you a copy of this week's OA Cheddar as well. Alfred, you're not automatically in the drawing. I shared a couple of links a couple of times so that you can just pop your name into it. Samuel S., you won OA Cheddar this week. Samuel S., make sure to shoot me an email, and let's go hit number 4. Looks like Rico Francisco, you are number 4, sir. Shoot me an email, and we will get you taken care of as well. And then number 5, the last one for OA Cheddar this week is going to be Jill M. All right, nice. So those are the winners for OA Cheddar. And check out those guys. Yeah.
Do you have a second?
Yeah, of course.
Why don't we do this? Because I love this idea. Let's do a 6th person, and we'll give them Aura free for 3 months.
Oh, that is killer. All right.
You want to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. All right.
I like this wheel.
this one here is you're gonna get Aura free for 3 months, which is just killer. So I wish I could throw my name in there.
Will, I knew Dillon was gonna come chime in. That's funny.
Cecilia D. So Cecilia D, I really hope that you are here. Shoot me an email at chris@cleartheshelf.com. I'll get you hooked up with Will, and you guys can work out getting Aura free for 3 months.
Awesome.
Which is killer, man. I really appreciate that, man.
Of course. What we'll do is we'll I'll just create a unique coupon code for that. So there's just one redemption, and we'll work together. I'll work with Chris to get that out. For those of you obviously who didn't get the free 3 months, that's okay. You could still, if you go to goaura.com/CTS, you can actually use the code CTS and you'll get 20% off the first 3 months after the 14-day free trial. So don't feel like you missed out too much. We actually don't share those as a company. That's per our partners. So please utilize that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right. Let's see here. Next up, we're going to give away a couple of Tactical Arbitrage t-shirts. I'm going to give away 2 of them. So I've sent out a lot of these. Actually, dude, you guys need a shirt because I will buy it and wear it.
I will send you a shirt.
Oh, dude, that's awesome. Linda C. Linda C, shoot me an email and I will get you a Tactical Arbitrage shirt in your color and size. And let's see who we got next here. The prizes I keep getting more. I'm accumulating more and more prizes every week.
That's
So
good,
this takes
man.
longer and longer. Kenneth L, I'll get you a shirt as well. Make sure to shoot me an email. Shoot me a PM on Facebook. I won't. It's 10 o'clock, so I'm probably going to read and go to bed after this. But I will get you taken care of as well. And let's give away some poly bags. My buddy Jonathan over at I Love Supplies gives away 3 packs of poly bags every single week. These are the best poly bags in the business, in my opinion. And we use them here for our stuff. And Tiffany, nice. You won poly bags from ilovesupplies.com. Make sure to shoot me an email or shoot me a message on Facebook. Shakir R, shoot me an email. I'll get you hooked up with poly bags from them as well. And last one for poly bags is
Feels like Christmas. This is great.
right. I love giving stuff away. Hal W, if you will shoot me an email, we'll get you 100 poly bags also. Now, let's give away 2 things of BrickSeek add-on. That's an extension that I built. That's great if you're doing OA, but want to see if any of it is local at Walmart, Target. They've also added places like BJ's Wholesale and several others, and I got it working with all of them. Finally got my developer to hop on that. So 2 copies of the BrickSeek add-on. Now, I have to say this because I've come into some run-ins with the guys who own brickseek.com. I am not breaking any of their rules per messages from them, and I'm not overloading their servers or anything like that, but I do not own brickseek.com. I own an add-on that makes their site better. So BrickSeek add-on is what I'm giving away, and then I'm going to have some new videos on it because the usefulness has gotten a little bit better. So Kai W, shoot me an email. I'll get you a copy of BrickSeek add-on and then send you the videos once I have them finished. And the last winner for BrickSeek add-on is Otis H. Otis H, shoot me an email as well. Now, finally, IP Alert is kind of our flagship extension to kind of protect you from sourcing brands that are IP prone or IP bullies. And that database is growing every week. We're close to 400 brands now. So Emma S, if you want to shoot me an email, I'll get you a copy of IP Alert. And the last winner for tonight, and then we will call it an evening, is, and I just got a message, Hal and Christine won poly bags again this week. They're gonna be swimming in them. Christopher Cruz, you won IP Alert. Shoot me an email. Your name, I want to say you might already have it. So if that's the case, I'll get you something else. I'll make sure you're not walking away empty-handed tonight. So, Dillon, thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate you. Everyone else, thank you for hanging out with us tonight. I appreciate you guys always showing up and showing some love. Make sure to hit the thumbs up, for the YouTube algorithm. I will be honest, it is important. And hit that subscribe and the bell button because I will be doing this every week. And then, of course, we're going to start having some other weekly videos as well, just to kind of help out the community a little bit more. So I will see you guys next Thursday for another week of Tactical Thursday, and have a great night, guys.